You know what's funny is that I had this for like months, and just haven't bothered. Hey, it's Soul, bringing you the World of Warcraft. It is January 20th, 2017, and it's time to bring you the news. Celestalon, a WoW developer and kind of a punching bag right alongside Brian Holinka and Greg Street, for some reason, posted what is, in my opinion, an interesting question on game design. So it kind of helps that he called it interesting too, but I'm going to read this off to you. Interesting game balance design question, haha, that we commonly deal with, but I'd love to hear you all's thoughts on, suppose you're in the following situation. Class X has 3 specs, A, B, and C. With equal gear, level, and skill, they average 100, 80, and 70 DPS, just pretend numbers. However, since A wins in theory, the more skilled and geared players will prefer A. This results in numbers looking more like 100, 70, and 50 on average. You want to better balance the specs of this class, so how much do you buff or nerf each spec? He goes on to say, assume the specs have their niches, but these numbers are across the whole raid tier on average. Most of the classes are at 100. So it's a simple balance question in one class. How do you make each class viable, knowing that the varying skill level of players is going to kind of skew the numbers? There were some decent replies, although there were some unproductive ones like, oh well, hey, maybe you should do a beta test, haha. And Celestalon responded to some of these replies. When it really comes down to it on the PTR, I think I've said this in a number of videos before, there are certain folks that are going to participate in the PTR that, well, there's just not enough of them for one thing, but the other is that you're usually going to have higher end players testing out these numbers and theory crafting and so on and so forth. But regardless of the size of the PTR sample, and regardless of the internal test team over at Blizzard, and Sims, even though they're mathematically correct, the calculations and what have you are still determined and decided by humans, and that's kind of flawed. And of course there were the personal attacks that were disguised as feedback. When I saw the question, I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and chime in. And at first I thought, okay, I'll just buff classes B and C and that'll be it. But then it got me thinking of the long-tailed repercussions of buffing and nerfing classes. And then, well, it's just a really fascinating question, and one that I'm going to dedicate an entire video essay for, because this one's fun. It's a lot more complicated and it's a lot more interesting than you would easily think. But I do want to get your guys' thoughts on this question. In MMORPGs, this is a forever challenge. Not exactly a problem, but more of a challenge for developers to tackle. We've been invited, and I'm inviting you guys to play the whole armchair developer thing. And well, leave a comment below, how would you guys answer that question? If you guys don't have or care about Twitter, maybe I can take your answers and I'll kind of transpose them onto a reply. And the winner's gonna get a $50 Chili's card. Nah, I'm just kidding. Oh, it's been a while. Tech 10, let's go. Hotfixes are still occurring to curb some of the 715 woes and imbalances, but there's one in particular that is in response to last week's Q&A. They talked and I talked about reducing the cost of the Tome of Tranquil mining to something that's reasonable. And the reason is that it's pretty competitive to just hearth back or, go back to a rest area, change your talents, and come back, because the cost of the tomes were just a little bit too high. So Blizzard hotfixed the cost of the Tome of Tranquil Mine, and now it just costs 1 sallow pigment. So the average price of a tome should be well under 100 gold at this point. And that's not bad. There's still a reason for scribes to make the tomes. The reduced cost makes it a lot more enticing for players to buy them from the auction house. But the interesting thing is going to be what it does to the supply of roseate pigment, which is the thing that is no longer used to make the tome. Effectively, the increased kind of supply of roseate pigment is going to cause the cost of that to go down, which is going to make the cost of glyphs go down. Shit. But I'm pretty sure that scribes are still in a good spot, so overall, I think everyone's going to be happy. Unless you made 200 tomes just days before the hotfix, which is what I did. Damn. Patch 7.2 is on the PTR. Well, it's barely on the PTR. As of this recording, it's not up and running quite yet. They're going to deploy this on the PTR in multiple stages, so right now there isn't a whole lot to test. Right now it's just the invasion events, I believe the pet dungeon stuff, and of course some other changes. We got another raid, we got another dungeon, we have tons of world quests. We're going to get flying to support some of these world quests. There's a lot to go over, but I'm not going to go over it here. Once, maybe next week, or maybe after we get another build or two and we have some more stuff to look at and test, I'll do a full 7.2 overview of what's to come. In the meantime though, from looking at the patch notes, and by the way, you guys can look at these patch notes right on your Battle.net launcher, there are a couple things that I bulleted off that I'll mention really quick. First off is stuff about reputations. I had earlier complaints that there's not a whole lot to do with them, and you get maxed out pretty quick, and then you're just kind of, okay, well, what do I do now? From the looks of it, we're gonna have something to do with our factions whenever we complete a world quest or some sort of objective that gets us reputation. My guess is that after Exalted we get some sort of currency whenever we finish a world quest or anything like that, and this currency will go towards some sort of special magical reward, like, I don't know, maybe finally a mount, or something just meaningful and neat, or some nice gear, I don't know. Tab targeting is going to make a change, and it seems kind of weird for me to talk like, oh, this is some revolutionary stuff we're talking about. So no, they're making it like workable and decent and functional. Basically, when you're in combat, you're not going to be able to tab onto targets that are not currently in combat. You also won't be able to target things that aren't in your line of sight or are like behind a wall, around a corner, or anything like that. You'd think that was something that was easy to engineer. Apparently it's not. Or they suck. I don't know. I'm guessing the former, because yeah. Anyway, moving on. It looks like there's going to be what's called an open all button in your mailbox. And like I said, the PTR's not up. I can't really, say for sure what it is, but I don't know. Is it just like a normal button press and it slowly opens all the mail like a bunch of add-ons have already been doing for 10 years or so? Or is it something where it just takes all the available mail, whether it's 50 or even more of that, and just move it right into your bags instantly? If it's like that, oh my god, why didn't Blizzard do this thing before? As a scribe, or heck, any of you guys that have dealt with tons and tons of mail at a time, well, I guess it'll come back to me. As a scribe, back in the day when I was like going really hardcore with selling glyphs, I would have like 2,000 mail in my mailbox. It's ridiculous. It would take like over half an hour just to get all that mail out of the mailbox. So if they've engineered some way to just grab everything instantly, that's huge. This one you folks might have known already, but dungeons are going to be scaling up in 7.2. So this is a new take on the kind of catch-up mechanisms Blizzard's trying to think up with Legion. We can already gear up pretty quickly with world quests, but at the same time it kind of trivializes dungeons too, so they're upping the damage and everything that are coming from dungeons, as well as Keystone dungeons. But there's a lot more stuff, even in these initial patch notes, so go ahead and take a look at it, tell me what you guys think, let me know what you guys are really hoping to see. So the Nighthold raid is out, and I'll give a few thoughts on what I think. It's fun. Now, we've only done the normal difficulty so far because, we're a bunch of scrubs running in and face pulling and pissing each other off, me pissing off my co-tank, and oh well. But it's fun. There are a lot of varied fights, different themes, cool mechanics to deal with. Some of them are kind of a cakewalk, and we just kind of did it by blowing through mechanics, because we're a little overgeared. The last couple are pretty challenging, and fun, by the way, but they are challenging, and we didn't get to kill Gul'dan yet. Pretty sure we'll do it next week, and I'll give a couple of brief thoughts on that. One thing that I would like to see in the raid is the Nightborn disguise. I really, really miss that. Because there's trash. There is hella trash. This shit does not end. There's a lot. That's probably my only gripe with the raid so far, at least until we get into Heroic, and then I start, being like, wow about other things. But apart from the trash, good times, really happy, all of us got tons of gear. I actually can't wait for the LFR version to come out so I can... Okay, what did I just say? Did I just say I can't wait for the LFR? Like, is this water that I'm having in the morning? I don't know. I'm not gonna mind doing LFR for the sake of getting tier, assuming that tier is gonna drop from the LFR version. And I've barely done LFR. Like, I did Trial of Valor LFR for the first time this week, just so I can finish that Illidan questline thing and get that thing out of the way. And for real, serious, you can check my armory and everything. I'm pretty sure I only did it once. I gotta check now. Yep, only did it once. Woo! A clarification was made regarding Mythic Keystone dungeon rewards. With the Nighthold raid out, the maximum item level of a Titanforge thing has gone up to 925. That also means the cap on Keystone dungeon rewards has gone up from 12 to 15. So, if you happen to complete a Mythic 15 dungeon, you can expect a Mythic 15 gear to appear in your next week's cache. Of course, that means there's some bitching from players about, oh man, now I gotta do like the Trial of Valor and Emerald Nightmare thing. I have to go back there just so I can get a chance at a Titan Forged whatever it is. They're basically making the argument of, hey, when a new raid comes out, the old raid should be totally, irrelevant. Yeah, times have changed. The Call of the Scarab micro-holiday is upon us. This will be our first micro-holiday since the 7.15 patch dropped. The event invites us to go back to Celestalon and to relive the farming days of yore. This is a faction-based event where the highest participation rate from either the Horde or Alliance is going to result with our flag hovering over right next to the gate. So everyone who's representing the Horde, go down to Celestalon from the 21st to the 23rd and represent your faction. And the Alliance version starts on the 24th, so, you know, Alliance, go to Celestalon, go there then. No, I'm just playing. It's going to happen on the 21st to the 23rd for everybody, so, you know, go ahead, represent your faction. Alliance, just represent your faction less, please. Thanks. One little flub that happened with the Nighthold opening this week was the whole Touch of the Titan quest. That's the quest line that's going to allow you to upgrade your legendary from 910 to 940. So the quest started in Dalaran in the blacksmithing store? Blacksmith Mart? I don't know. You had to go there and get the quest, presumably before performing any activity that would get you these items that you need. Some players were pretty upset when they went down to open their Mythic Keystone cache and didn't receive the items because they didn't start the quest yet. And the Keystone chest gives 15 of these items, which is a pretty significant amount considering you need 50. There's some conflicting reports from players saying, hey, I was able to get the essence for the chest without having the quest. But I didn't. I'm one of those suckers who open the chest first before picking up the quest. And now for me it's not a huge deal, but probably for a very competitive raider, it's like, oh my god, this is, you know, this really sucks. I can see it now in some faraway forum. Okay, maybe a not so far away forum. Someone's gonna be like, oh, you know, screw this, I'm tired of Legion. Legacy servers, yeah, that kind of stuff where you fall behind, that never happened there. And that is a shameful attempt at a segue. And speaking of legacy servers, haha, there seems to be a whole lot of drama going on, so I'll try to make this brief. We start off with Nostalrius, a World of Warcraft Classic private server that was shut down in April. It was the biggest of its kind that day, and that caused reverberations throughout the community. There were tons of drama. You have high-profile YouTubers and streamers get involved, you got on the news, we had a guy in glasses sitting around with a stack of paper, and there were hundreds of thousands of signatures on an online petition, which surely carries a lot of weight, right? But it was effective. It pressured Blizzard enough to invite the Nostalrius team over to their headquarters in Irvine, California, to sit and talk and discuss, and I guess it was a chance for the team, for the Nostalrius team to present their business plan, how they operated. And I guess more importantly, discuss the viability of running a classic realm officially. After that meeting and towards the fall, there wasn't really much of a response from Blizzard at all about what happened in the meeting or any action that they were going to take. Which I'm sure angered a lot of players, but at least for me it's kind of a reminder that, oh yeah, that's right, this is a corporation with a budget, limited time and manpower, and oh yeah, they're doing an expansion in a few months. Now I want to reiterate that I'm not exactly talking about the legacy movement, I'm talking about Nostalrius as an organization and all the fuck-ups that they've committed over the past couple months that led to where we are now. Or to where they are now? You know, I'll clarify that later. So it's been months, at least supposedly, since the Blizzard team has talked to Nostalrius about legacy servers, and I guess the Nostalrius team was getting pretty pissed. They made a post on their forum trying to pressure or kind of warn Blizzard, hey, you guys better talk about legacy servers at BlizzCon, otherwise we're gonna do something about it. Nost, can I call you Nost? I'm gonna call you Nost, it's easier on the tongue. Nost made a threat to Blizzard, to make an announcement to honor their core values, or that they will. At the time, I didn't quite know what that meant. When I was at BlizzCon, I saw a couple of folks with NOS t-shirts, yay whoop-de-doo, but I didn't really hear much of a peep out of them, although they did try to put a question into the Q&A, and of course it wasn't answered. Neither was mine, and we know how that Q&A went. But a couple weeks leading up to BlizzCon, Blizzard made their own statement saying, hey, we're not going to say anything about legacy servers. Sorry. And it's pretty obvious why. Legion's coming out. They just announced Karazhan, the 7.1 patch. People are excited about current WoW. Obviously, people will be excited about legacy servers too, but even if Blizzard happened to be working on legacy servers and are just omitting that information from us outright, it would send a mixed message to the community as a whole as to what they want to focus on. Blizzard was basically like, hey guys, you know, we want to take you seriously, but quit bitching. We'll get to you. It's in the pipe. You'll see something soon. So Nos decided to team up with Elysium, another, I guess it's another big WoW private server, obviously the biggest of its time now. Nos gives Elysium their core data, which is all the server data that they use, as well as all the character data from the many accounts that it had. Elysium relaunches these servers, the legacy movement continues, and everything's okay. But it's not really okay, at least according to Nost. Nost makes another statement on their forum that they want to kind of break up with Elysium. Nost was like, hey Elysium, can you stop using the data that we gave you and stop doing character transfers that people were using, getting their Nos characters onto Elysium servers? Stop doing that because, that doesn't quite send the message that we want to give. I'll leave a link to this post. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's kind of cringy. To be honest, it's kind of cringy to read, but I'll read this one statement. We know that Nos carries the hopes of the legacy community, but moving from fan server to pirate server reputation makes it harder to convince that the legacy fans have a place on the WoW community. What baffles me is the kind of disillusionment coming from Nos with this statement. Like, what's the difference between a fan server and a pirate server? Nothing. A fan server is not sanctioned by Blizzard. It is not licensed by Blizzard. It's not part of the terms of service or the end user license agreement. In my opinion, that phrase alone is testament to their head in the cloudness. I think they're mistaking the legitimacy of the movement to the legitimacy of them as a team, as what it is, a pirate server. The Nos team basically buried themselves by giving their code away. The Elysium team, on the other hand, now has a bolstered code to work with, and effectively they're probably going to have much better private servers to run, and now it's going to be their success or failure that Blizzard's going to look at when it comes to the feasibility of running an official classic server. In the end, what the Nos team ultimately accomplished wasn't creating a big private server community. In the end, the Nos team didn't just unite a big community, they also cleaved it into several pieces. What the Nos team did was create a very strong community within the greater WoW community itself. In the end, we're all part of the same team. We have hardcore raiders, we have hardcore, gladiator people. You got the bonehead casuals, the people that are pro-flight or anti-flight. There are role players, there are pet battlers, and there are twinks, and there are classic server fans. And we can say that between classic server fans and pretty much everyone else, because everyone else is pretty involved with the retail game and they are not, we can say that the communities are polarized because of the fundamental differences in thought. What Nos did was polarize the already polarized. The Nos team mismanaged themselves into what might be oblivion. By threatening Blizzard back in October and then releasing their source code and, legitimizing Elysium as the place to go, they may not have damaged the movement to get an official Classic Realm to work. But they did tell Blizzard, fuck you. And you don't really want to do that in this kind of negotiation. That's kind of relationship ending. And at least between Blizzard and Nost, I don't think there's going to be much communication going on between them anymore. The Nost team effectively lost legitimacy, at least in Blizzard's eyes, because of the way that they act. And asking Elysium to not use their data anymore, they send a message to their polarized community, as well as Blizzard, that we Nost, we don't know what we want. You can't just insult Blizzard's goodwill, whether you believe it or not, but you can't just insult that and then expect to work with them again. And you can't really expect to work with your own community anymore if you suddenly take away what they had and say, no, this isn't right, let's do this the right way. So again, this isn't a knock on legacy servers or legacy server fans, because in the end, we're all World of Warcraft fans. But the Nos team, it shot themselves in the foot when they gave away that code to Elysium. Then they shot their other foot when they asked for it back. Now we have a private server whose endgame is simply to exist. It doesn't seem like they're pushing a narrative to try and push for official Classic Realms, and their community is going to rally around that. People there seem to have lost the trust of Nost, and they've lost even more trust in Blizzard, because they think, I guess they think that Blizzard has somehow influenced Nost into doing whatever they're doing. And if so, that's one thing we can speculate, we'll never really know. For all we know, back in June, Mike Morhaime was like, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and legitimize these guys, because they're going to, they're going to weigh themselves down with the fame, and they're going to crumble on their own. If that's the case, that's some masterful Game of Thrones 5D chess kind of shit that they pulled. But it is what it is, and that's the news. So that was a lot to talk about, thank you for making it to the end. I'm actually pretty backed up on ideas and content to produce, so next week might be a little bit heavy, you might be seeing more of me. But it helps a ton, believe me, it helps a ton if you would like and subscribe, and of course comment with any thoughts, questions, or suggestions that you have for me. Hope you guys have a terrific weekend, and I'll see you next week. I'm Soul. Stay breezy, guys.